Hello, Tricia. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today and joining me and my colleague, Tricia Baker. We're going to chat a little bit about PACE funding, specifically PACE Equity, a direct funder and lender in the country that is helping to build efficiently projects with investors and developers across the country. You have before you now the agenda. Again, we're going to talk a little bit about the PACE financing and introduce a new product that is only available from PACE Equity. It's exclusive and very exciting. So we will learn more about that later in our presentation. Now, just as hey, Audie, good afternoon to you. I'm glad you could join us. I was just about to say, guys, if you want to ask a question at any point in time, feel free to write it down in the chat and I will read your question. And Tricia and I will do our best to answer all of them. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. All right, guys, what is PACE financing? So PACE is an acronym. It stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy. This is a private-public development tool specifically to help finance real estate development projects at various stages and various asset classes. The point of the legislation that now has been approved in more than 30 states throughout the country is to incentivize real estate developers to try to build more energy efficient, try to step away from the carbon footprint. You see on the slide, we have broken down for you PACE basics and then the benefits of PACE equity financing. So again, I've mentioned that PACE funding is a public-private partnership, okay, legislated across 30 plus states around the country. The funding is all about reducing your utility spend. So when you're thinking about your construction projects, you think about what construction measure am I doing that's going to impact my utility costs. So most legislated programs around the country include, yes, utilities, water, conservation, and then renewable energy measures. Okay, repayment. This is the public part of the program. What's really awesome about PACE financing is that it's repaid as a special assessment on your property tax bill as the property owner. Okay, you may say, all right, what's cool about that? Well, how often do you pay your property tax bill? Twice a year. Alternatively, and we're going to talk about this some more, if you use different financing other than PACE, you know you're going to have to pay every month. And I'm a firm believer in I want to keep my cash in my pocket. So I'd rather pay twice a year than every month. So that's one of the benefits of PACE being repaid as a special assessment on your property tax bill. All right. Hey, can it be combined with complex structures such as new market tax credits, historical tax credits, tax increment financing, or even a ground lease? Absolutely. Benefits, I just mentioned several of them. But what I didn't mention is why choose PACE over an alternative funding source. Typically, PACE is coming into the capital stack as a gap filler. That means long and the short is that you fill your capital stack with your commercial bank or your debt fund lender. They're going to give you a certain percentage of total project costs. They're going to expect you to make up the difference. Maintaining ownership. So I mentioned only the debt sources that you can utilize to help fill the owner equity component of your capital stack. Obviously, the other thought maybe I'll just bring in some more investors, but then you are reducing your return by bringing in additional investors, and utilizing PACE funding helps to eliminate that, but get you closer to that position of bringing in another investor versus bringing in the more traditional forms of debt financing. Number 3, non-recourse. That's one of the biggest benefits of PACE funding. I'm sure those of you who have put together capital stacks in the past have recognized that 9 times out of 10, most of your traditional commercial banking lenders are going to have and require personal financial guarantees. Some of your debt funds may not, but you will pay for it in the interest rate. PACE funding is always non-recourse. There are no personal financial guarantees after you complete your project. And number 4, increasing the NOI and property value. So the whole notion of increasing NOI gets back to the savings that you will incur and enjoy by making your project energy efficient and allowing PACE equity to help you get there. So your internal rate of return automatically will go up as compared to other sources of financing that are not aligned specifically with creating energy efficiency and reducing your utility spend. Property value is an easy concept to understand. If you are making the project more green, if you will, and more energy efficient, it's more marketable than if it were not. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Here we go. Here's a map, guys. Every dark blue state has passed PACE legislation. Tennessee there in the lighter blue is on its way to passing the legislation. So I am the managing director for PACE Equity in Michigan. Fortunately, though, I do not have geographical limitations. So I can go anywhere you're going to develop your project, as long as the PACE legislation has been approved in that state. Thank you, Tricia. This is another great slide. I want to share with you guys that this is a growing market, CPACE, which stands for Commercial PACE. It's a growing market and it's growing fast. But now you can see from 2018 through 2022, you've seen the trajectory of movement for the industry. So this is in millions. So 2022, we're looking at 2 billion, and we expect to be at 6 billion by 2025. Thank you. Next slide. This is a slide that gets back to what I referenced earlier. How do you build your capital stack? So you can see that the debt on both buildings is 62%. But as I said before, that means that the owner equity to fill the rest of the capital stack is 38%. And many of our clients utilize PACE equity specifically for that reason. The bonus obviously is energy efficiency. The bonus obviously is the reduction of operating expenses through the reduction of the utility spend, hence a greater internal rate of return. But at the end of the day, it's really, it serves a purpose of being a source of capital into your capital stack that can get the deal done at a cost-effective rate. Okay, all right. But look, okay, this is fine. Next slide here. I always get this question, guys, so I hope this is helpful for you. So what will PACE pay for? You see construction measures on this slide that impact water conservation, utility spend, as well as the building envelope. most people don't think about the building envelope. The building envelope would include your roof, would include things like air barriers. It includes masonry. The thought process being that if you have holes in your roof, if you have crumbling mortar, if you have old windows, you're losing heat and cool air. So those are PACE eligible measures that many people don't consider. Obviously, your HVAC system, the controls with the HVAC system. The seismic and resiliency is mostly on the West Coast with the earthquakes and, the activity of Mother Nature on that side of the country. So another one that's often overlooked, elevators, escalators. They work as well. What you don't see on here would be kitchen appliances, or if you're doing a commercial kitchen and you have the coolers. A lot of the kitchen equipment for residential and or commercial, residential if you're doing multifamily, or commercial kitchens is applicable as well. All right, I'm ready for the next slide. This is another often asked question. Okay, what asset classes will you fund? Right now, I would say out of all of the asset classes you see in this slide, senior housing and multifamily are our front runners. But we will fund nonprofits as well as for-profits. So bring it to us and let us take a look. Next slide.
Yeah, and Sonia, just jumping in with one quick comment that we also do solar only. So, that has kind of been bumping up in popularity. So thought I'd mention that here as well.
Oh, that's very important. Thank you, Tricia. Okay, now this is an important slide, guys. Yeah, there are 87 steps to execute PACE financing, and we do all 87. What I explain to people or investors, real estate investors interested in the PACE program is that the PACE program, the public side of it, is very similar to obtaining a real estate tax abatement. So many of you probably know that Michigan, in most communities throughout Michigan, most counties do allow for real estate tax abatement. In the city of Detroit, Wayne County, they're giving an OPRA, obsolete property rehabilitation abatement. They have the PA 210, which is for former commercial property. You also, you have the Brownfield TIF, which is a tax abatement, but a reimbursement, but very similar in process to the approval. If you've ever done a real estate tax abatement, then you have to first form the district, fill out the application, get all the supporting documents, take it down to the city clerk's office. I guess you can do it online now, but I'm kind of old school. I would actually take it down to the city clerk's office and have it time-stamped. And then you had to actually apply for a certificate and then go in front of city council to defend the request. We do all of that for you. The steps are very similar. A district has to be formed and we have to actually apply for a certificate. And then we go to, in the case of Detroit, we go to Warren Evans, the Wayne County executive, to have the certificate approved. So it's seamless, it's invisible, but transparent to you, and we do all the work. Next slide. So this is where I get to turn over the presentation to Tricia Baker. And I didn't introduce Tricia, but you've heard her speaking and you can see her in the corner. So Tricia is our Senior Vice President over investment and strategy and impact. And she's been doing a phenomenal job for us And she really helped to spearhead what she's about to talk about, our CIRRUS Low Carbon program and how it can benefit you and your project.
Thank you so much, Sonia. And hello, everyone. So glad to be here and really excited to share with you, what we consider the next generation of CPACE financing. So Sonia is giving you a nice overview of how how PACE works. And what we'd like to introduce now is a brand new offering, still based on PACE, still everything that we've just covered is true, but there are some opportunities to make it even more powerful. And I'm going to talk through some of those things. So first of all, we've created a brand to wrap around this, and our brand is CIRRUS Low Carbon. And the easiest way to put it is to say that we offer lower rates when you build a lower carbon building. So let me just explain a little more behind that. So in its simplest form, it's three primary things. First, we have created, in partnership with the New Buildings Institute, a design specification. So more on that in a minute, but we've got this kind of turnkey booklet that you're able to reference, or your designers are able to reference for the how. When you meet that specification or build to that design, you receive a lower rate from PACE Equity. And the third piece of this is a green building certification, including things like a building plaque and a whole marketing toolkit. But what's important for you to note is that it becomes a point of opportunity for you to be able to publicize this certification and to know that you can encourage increased tenant rates and potentially higher rental rates and have other ESG benefits and brand benefits from participating in this program. So just again, a little more color on this. The New Buildings Institute is a nonprofit, very, very active and quite dominant in the sustainability arena. So together with them, we put together this detailed specification. I'm going to give you a few more insights on that in a minute. But again, we partnered with them, we reduced our rate, we actually built internally a low carbon team so that with this team, we're able to put together a really strong profile for you to understand how it can financially benefit you to pursue this option. So no matter what, when you work with PACE Equity, you have the choice of either a standard CPACE platform or the CIRRUS platform. So, that decision doesn't need to be made at the outset. You can determine that once we have all the data that we need for you to make a good decision. And then how I refer to it here is we give you the tools to brag about it. And that just really means it's an opportunity for you to promote your building with this special designation. So why CIRRUS Low Carbon? So we really rallied around this desire to make this be a practical thing. We don't want this to be an arduous process. As Sonia mentioned, we've got this fast track process wherein we really shift the burden to us. So your experience is simple. And we wanted that to be true in this case as well. So we put together this financial benefits package. So you get a meaningful rate reduction. So it's significant enough, and I'll show you some case studies to give you examples or a couple examples, but to make an impact. And as we talked about just a few slides ago, it's going to impact your property value because it's going to impact your energy savings. It's going to be a greener building, a better building. So for those reasons, those are going to be financial benefits to you. But we also know greener buildings mean people have higher desires to live there, and they're willing to pay higher rates for that privilege. And often our CIRRUS Low Carbon program is set up with a design specification that also makes you available for local rebates and utility rebates. So those are available as well, or can be another financial benefit for you. And then, the cost impact really kind of goes back to that fast-tracked funding team. Again, we have our transaction team, but we also have this low carbon team. So this team is responsible for determining whether your building design meets the specification. If it doesn't meet the specification, it helps you figure out what you need to do in order to meet the specification. And then we build a business case that show you the specific dollars. And then, as I mentioned, there's also this brand advantage. So we give you a robust marketing toolkit. It's got a plaque, it's got a press release. We create a stakeholder video. We work with you on promotion on the Getting to Zero website and the PACE Equity website and other tools and resources. So I wanted to share what this design specification is, because sometimes, first pass might feel, oh gosh, is it a complicated thing to achieve? The answer really is no. Today, if you're building a building or retrofitting or renovating or redeveloping a building, you're already thinking about the core things that are going to make your building more sustainable. So you're thinking about building envelope, HVAC improvement, water heating, lighting, appliances, insulation, solar readiness, or its potential. So those are the exact same things that we're looking at. What we're asking is that meeting each of those elements is required. So it's mandatory to reach the level that we specified in this CIRRUS Low Carbon specification. What we used is an ASHRAE 90.1 2019 goal. Some of them are 2016, but the HVAC is 2019. So, depending on where the project is, you're already building to code. This is asking you to go slightly beyond that. And then 2 additional efficiency options are required when you're building. Now, this is for a new construction. So this specification that I'm showing here is new construction. We do offer a redevelopment specification, again, that's slightly different than this. Just obviously the nature of the project would be different. But in the case of additional efficiency options here, 2 are required. We've seen consistently clients who've been through the program hitting 1 right out of the gates. And then what we're essentially saying is, if you can push a little harder on HVAC or a little harder on lighting or water heating, you can generally hit that second specification on the additional efficiency options section. So let me walk you through what this process looks like, not granular detail, but certainly some specifics here. So once you sign a commitment to work with PACE Equity, you start our transaction process. And part of that is for us to compare your existing building design, if one exists, to the specification. If there are points that don't reach the specification, then we're very specific about the additional effort that you need to pursue. Then we build a business case that'll show you really, really clearly what the costs are and the incremental benefits from an energy savings perspective and from a carbon perspective. And then we ask that you update your building design to reflect that. And then we push you through that verification process. The verification process is performed by New Buildings Institute. So we've got that third-party validator. So this program mirrors in most ways, all the certification programs that you may already be familiar with, from Fitwell and Well and LEED and Energy Star. So it's just another option here, this one paired with PACE. So let me give you, again, just a little more color commentary here. So I call this the summary dashboard, but essentially this is the list of measures that we require, this top set. And in the case of this project, you can see pass, 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 pass. There's 1 revision that's required. So this is pretty common. Many developers are already building, toward a green goal. So there's often maybe 1 or 2, a couple of misses in that mandatory category. In this particular case, the developer did have 2 passes, meaning they met both of their requirements for additional efficiency options. But again, you need to do all of the on the top portion and 2 below. I want to say one quick thing about solar readiness, because solar readiness is a requirement. If you've got solar, you're already ticking the box. If you're in the process of considering solar, or if you're not considering solar, what we require is that your building have enough space on the roof for you to add solar in the future. So that's about 15% of the roof space that is flat and unencumbered with vents and HVAC and some of the equipment that's already on your roof. So you need a little bit of space. And then we also require that your electric panel just have, you know, enough space to add solar should you choose to in the future, and maybe a designation in the panel, you know, for future solar. So just to show that, you know, you've got a plan essentially to add it if you choose to in the future. No requirement other than to be ready for it. And so once you know, we do that dashboard, we understand where you aren't meeting the specification, we calculate the costs in order to do that. So we do have an estimator on our team who is very, very seasoned and will create that cost profile. Then we calculate the energy savings that you'll achieve by meeting the specification. We know that when you have reduced energy, that's automatically going to improve your net operating income. And your net operating income, when that is better, also impacts your property value. So it all moves down from left to right, and we put all of that together into a business case. So I'm going to give you an example of a really simple version of it, just to kind of show you the way that we do it and to give you an example of how this worked. So in this case, it's a hotel, new construction. In their initial analysis, there were 5 design changes that we required, and our estimator determined that that was going to cost about $67,000. So you see that here at the top under incremental construction costs. Then we know that if we take a 50 basis point reduction in rate, that in this case, there was reduced interest paid of $320,262. We know that the energy savings is going to be $71,000 based on those design changes. And we know energy savings is going to impact your property value. So we don't take into any changes to cap rate or any other changes beyond what you already would have covered. But in this case, these are really kind of straight, simple ways to calculate a very straightforward business case. So in this case, the net financial impact was $410,770. Just to give you a sense of kind of scale and a sense of how detailed we get.
And Tricia, can I add that this is not an illustration? This is an actual business case for an actual client, a borrower of PACE Equity.
Yeah, thanks, Sonia. That's a good point. We launched this product earlier in 2022, and we actually are closing within the week the first of our new construction CIRRUS projects. And the week following, we're closing the first of our redevelopment CIRRUS projects. So we, have proven it. The team is becoming, very efficient at putting together all of these materials. We've got great interest from our client base, and we'd love to consider all of you who are listening right now, potential candidates for this as well. So just a couple more quick points. We do know that the brand of LEED is very well established. And, many of our projects, as a matter of fact, are being built in tandem with LEED. So a developer's already got LEED as part of what their goal set is. And so CIRRUS dovetails, obviously, as you can imagine, directly on top of that. But a couple points to note, CIRRUS includes a rate reduction. CIRRUS verification happens at design. So before the project is built, which gives you advantages when you're marketing your property, you can start talking about it right away rather than waiting until it's constructed and commissioned. And there are no costs associated for application, participation, or verification for CIRRUS. And that is quite different than some of the other programs that you are very likely familiar with.
Tricia, we have a question from the audience. So the question is, what is the time frame for receiving an award? optimally and any issues or challenges?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. And the time frame for receiving an award, and if I just want to clarify, if it sounds like, it looks like Audie is asking that question. If you're asking, when you get the verification, it's about 4 weeks. So once we get the design updated, so again, we'll tell you what needs to be done, and we even use a signed addendum from an architect would be another way to achieve this. We are going to be changing this, and this, for example. So we receive that, and you are from that point on locked into the CIRRUS rate for closing. And the verification isn't required to be done before closing. So at no point do we want to hold things up. So the short answer is there's no additional time built in order to achieve this. It happens at the same pace, no pun intended, that our PACE program happens. And in terms of, so I hope I answered that question. When you get the 4 weeks after the design changes, all we're expecting from NBI, and that's really based on their ability to turn things around. That's what they gave us as their longest. It could happen faster. Mm-hmm. And then, and any challenges, really the challenges are that there is an ideal point at which you can engage in the program. And by that, I just mean, if you haven't solidified your design yet, it's a great opportunity to take the specification, pass it off to your architects and say, this is what I want. And then there are no changes. If you're further down the path than that, you can use, as I mentioned, a couple different strategies. And our estimators and engineers are very, very seasoned at building design. So they've got great ideas, and we've identified a lot of products already that can achieve some of the things that we see typically in multifamily ventilation or those kinds of things. We've got a couple spots where we see more challenges than others, but again, we're working to provide the product suggestions to overcome those.
Great answers, Tricia. We have more questions.
Okay.
So Renita says, great job, Tricia. And she's asking, and I can probably fill this one, but what is the difference in the loan rates from CPACE versus CIRRUS? CIRRUS can reduce your interest rate by up to 100 basis points. So 100 basis points lower than the CPACE rate you would otherwise obtain. So that's significant, especially in a rising interest rate environment that we're in now. So that's huge. And then Audie asks, he states, great job for both of you. Thank you for the information. Isabel, hi, Isabel. Isabel is asking about long-term leases. Would a long-term lease count as ownership for that time? That's a good question, but the answer is no. The hotel, she's referencing hotels in particular. Whomever owns the land has to agree to the special assessment. Now, in a ground lease, we can do that because, typically ground leases might be 99 years. And so the owner of the property is, putting in a significant alliance with the person or the entity that's entering into the ground lease. So we're okay in that scenario. And it could be, it may possibly work the same for a long-term lease as long as the owner of the property agrees to the special assessment. The special assessment will show up on the property tax bill of the owner, and that owner 9 times out of 10 is passing that cost or seeking to be reimbursed with that cost by the tenant. Hopefully that answers your question, Isabel. Okay, back to you, Tricia.
Yeah, thank you so much for hanging in here with us, guys. Couple more just really quick things. One is we're just pleased to announce that we recently received an environmental impact award from our industry alliance, the CPACE Alliance. And we were able to reduce on one of the projects, it was actually an industrial client, 32,000 metric tons of carbon. So that was a very exciting opportunity for us, and we're excited to add to it with our CIRRUS projects coming up. And one other thing, just for reference for you, I mentioned earlier that, you know, a lot of folks know LEED, they even build to LEED, and we supplement that very nicely. If you're already achieving LEED requirements, you will very likely easily reach CIRRUS requirements as well. So I do have this crosswalk that shows in these various categories: renewables, water sense, lighting, hot water, and so forth, what requirements there are for a couple of these different programs. So you can see that for reference. But what you'll see is, you know, that in the case of CIRRUS, we do have requirements across that whole continuum. And, you know, and you would be eligible for a lot of these other programs as well if you have opportunities there. So one of our first clients gave us some great feedback that the specification was clear and achievable. Kind of circling back to my comment earlier, what we want is practicality. You know, we don't want complexity. We want this to be, as we say, clear, achievable, straightforward. And then when you pair it with the rates that we're able to offer through this program, it really is, you know, a great opportunity that we encourage you to consider. So that was it. So happy to have you all join us, and thank you so much, Sonia, for including me.
You are very welcome, Tricia. Thank you for your contribution in helping us learn more about CIRRUS and how it can lower our interest rates and help us move off of the carbon footprint and achieve a better building. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.